Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Tooth is Out There event, in which the Spirittooth is added to the game. So, before we get into all the normal things for the week, there are quite a few things that just dropped today as far as new content or returning content coming to the game. Of course, last week we had version 6.8, and with that we ended up getting 4 new troops. And here they are. Well, 3 of the 4. The other one I don't have yet. It is advised waiting until this Friday, as we are going to be getting a brand new Mythic this Friday, as we do the first Friday of every single month for a week period. And during that time, it might be a little bit more efficient to be able to go and get these. Not in that they'll have a higher drop rate, but in the sense that you'll be able to go get the new Mythic while doing so. And this new Mythic is usable with 2 copies, so worth waiting until then. But I got a couple of them now. Basically what these 4 troops are, let's go to unowned. Oh, I'll need to go to clear filter unowned. There we go. Anyways, so let's go over the 4 troops real quick. So Eleanor, this creates a bunch of purple gems. Basically what these came in for was in the last patch, they basically updated the new player storyline for like the first quest line and everything like that. I'm not sure exactly what this is, as I haven't made a new account since then. Though if any of you just started in the last week or so, you probably already know what it is, potentially. However, yeah, with it, they brought 4 new troops, and they just dropped today. And you can get them in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests. Keep in mind, they are not in event key drop tables, and the only one of them in gold key drop table is the Militiaman. Anyways, so Eleanor, it just creates a bunch of purple. Oddly enough, out of all of them, is probably the most useful. It's a Human Knight, so it has a little bit of Human Knight synergy with those kind of teams. And 11 purple for 9 mana is not bad, though the fact that it doesn't feed into itself is not ideal. The rest of them are pretty useless, though. Mysterious Hero, just some damage to a random enemy, nothing special, pretty weak. I assume most of these will be because these are probably some of the first things newer players might fight in the current state of the game, or at least pretty early, so they were kind of geared to be a little bit towards the weaker side. This guy just does a bunch of random damage, not really that useful, but it is targetable, unlike the other one. And last, we have the Guardian Dragon, which is like trying to be Tina 9000, but way worse. It's basically standard useless dragon, where it just hits all enemies, does something useless as a side effect, and has a useless final trait, as are like 80% of dragons these days. Unfortunately, it could have been like Tina 9000, where it gets to utilize like all of its armor for something and actually gain good armor value. But no, it's pretty underwhelming. But at least it'll be easy for newer players to end up killing. Probably even easier than Shegra if they're fighting that instead of Shegra. I'm pretty sure they still have to face Shegra for Broken Spire, I'm not sure. But it is definitely easier than Shegra, especially since Shegra got buffed a couple years ago, making it actually a little bit harder. But anyways, those are the 4 new troops. Nothing really particularly special. All for Sword's Edge. So that does bring Sword's Edge to a very, very high star level. The highest in the game? 29 star? 28 star? It's not realistic to get to that point. However, that's a very high star amount. Because assuming each one of these is a star, that is the first 29 star kingdom in the game. Which is extremely close to a 30 star kingdom. So that's rather interesting. Obviously, the requirements to get there are not worth doing. However, it seems to technically be possible, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, in other news, there's something else that dropped today. If you did not get the Empress or the, what was this one again? Wait, what is this one? Oh, Ace of Wands. But if you have not gotten Ace of Wands or Empress, more notably the Empress, you can now finally get it in Valky drop table. The main reason I say this is relevant is Empress is actually ridiculously good. It is the strongest tarot card in the game. It's arguably the only usable tarot card in the game. I guess Emperor is, the Fool is occasionally. There's like a few that are situational. However, Empress is the one like absurdly good tarot card. It gives a bunch of stats to the last ally. And then there's a 7% chance I'll gain extra turn for every green on the board. This is very useful given that there are quite a few things that have auto extra turn like Truffle and Beatrix that are already commonly used on teams, particularly Beatrix, that can end up creating green to synergize into this, while also having a nice secondary effect. But also, this gives its full amount of magic, unlike the Emperor that I believe gives half +1 or something similar to that. But this gives the full amount of magic, and while it is your last slot and it might be slightly mana blocked, to be able to give that much magic consistently 100% of the time to your last slot is very, very good on troops that utilize that magic very well for whatever their cast is. And of all the tarot cards, is the strongest one and one of the only few that I would actually say is like legitimately used in teams. I personally haven't been using it much lately, but it's definitely very strong, and I do advise potentially getting it. We do have a Vault event this weekend, so you can end up farming Vault keys then. So if you currently have 0, well, just go farm this weekend, you'll be able to go get some. Anyways, so yeah, Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest has those new troops, but you probably want to wait till Friday until the Mythic comes out. And the Valky drop table has these 2 new troops, with the one you're actually trying to find being the Empress. And if you don't have any Valkies now, just wait till Friday. Anyways, let's go over the actual thing. The Tooth is out there, Spirittooth. So what does this thing do? It does nothing. You can stock up on blue-purple arcanes if you need, as they are pretty cheap right now at 200 each. But as far as your troop itself, nothing special. Just deal some damage to an enemy, creates 3 spirit gems. It's not boost ratioed by anything. 3 spirit gems with no follow-up, just really bad. It's more likely to backfire onto you. The only slight good thing about this is spirit gems are blue, and it does use blue, so theoretically it could feed back into itself. However, the chance that the enemy gains more value from this is way higher than you gaining value from it. One nice thing is that it does have immune to mana drain, which is always a good combination to have on anything that creates spirit gems. And in theory, this would be a really good troop if this number was higher. If it created 7 or more, or had like auto extra turn with these 3, then it'd be going places. Unfortunately, it's just too small of an amount. But the other synergy's there. It doesn't have enough gem spawn to really justify using it, as it will be way too inconsistent and help the enemy more than yourself. Anyways, as far as the event key drop table, it's Wild Plains this week. So as far as what is actually within it, if we go over here, this is everything within the drop table. Main things to mention that are not in the drop table that are over here are only the 4 faction troops, the ones from the Labyrinth. So anything from Labyrinth here is not in the event key drop table this week. Everything else is. Overall, as far as event key drop table is concerned, nothing really particularly special other than Lord of Slaughter. Catcher Stable is used occasionally. I use them for the World event this week as well. Actually, one of them, I think if I have it doubled up on him, though it's not required, you can replace that for other damage sources, of course, within the kingdom. As most of them have a pretty similar mechanic where they kind of do like splash or like boost ratio based on their like life, attack, armor kind of premise. But Lord of Slaughter is probably the only reason you're opening event keys other than to upgrade the kingdom. He's among one of the best skull spammers in the entire game. Not only being able to create 1 billion of them by creating some browns and converting everything into Doom Skulls. So not only might he have direct alignment, but you can also cast him when he doesn't have alignment, as those 6 gems are likely to land to give you alignment. But he also gets 1 to 2 free bleeds, which isn't that relevant. But the thing is 1 to 2 free death marks. So he can often kill like an entire team in like 2 casts between death marks plus just his skull convert. He's also the only troop in the game that has 100% skull ignore. This used to be a mechanic that used to be on tons of troops within the game. But in the current state of the game, Lord of Slaughter is the only one with it. Oddly enough, it's normally used as a 2nd slot instead of a 1st slot. Well, you can use it in 1st slot. It does tend to die if you miss its ability, and that's not good. So it's normally used a little bit further back in the team, even though everything he has is kind of set up pretty well for him to be a 1st slot option. He can be if you want, but safer in 2nd, with something else kind of offsetting it with like some kind of resummoner to keep retanking the 1st slot. But overall, one other thing to possibly consider, we do have Guild War this week, and this place does have a lot of gnolls. And gnolls are really good at countering specific colors. Like, for example, this one counters yellow. The other one here counters brown, so on and so forth. And there's a lot of them within this kingdom. Like a green one. I believe every color except 1 exists. But yeah, you can just use them as a really good Guild War counter. And they are very, very strong. Oddly enough, some of the lower rarity ones are actually some of the stronger ones, like Savage Hunter, for example. But you can basically just use any of them, so they are good Guild War options, so if you don't already have them, that might be one other reason to open event keys. So overall, not that bad of an event key drop table. It really just depends what you're looking for or lack thereof. If you already have Lord of Slaughter and the gnolls, I'd probably skip though, as you pretty much have all the useful things that you really need, unless you're just looking for Kingdom stars. And the Kingdom does reach 25 stars as of this week, with the addition of the new troop. Anyways, as far as the World events, of course, we had the Journey event last week, and that has now concluded. But we do have a World event now. World event is specifically to spell damage. This is relevant because Lord of Slaughter is not relevant due to that. As far as scoring, it's very straightforward. It's just rarity order and just never take Sand Shark. As long as you never take Sand Shark, you should be good to go. As far as options to use, we primarily just have like the heavy splash, like gain boost ratio from all stats kind of options. So Catches the Bowl being the absolute best one if you happen to have 1 or multiple. Highly advise using teams with 1, 2, or even 3 if you really want to go with it, which is hero mana accumulating off of any of the 2 mana accumulating weapons. There are 2 weapons that you'd likely want to use this week. Either Primal Axe in order to get a bunch of gem spawn based on Wild Plains boost ratio, and the other thing, because it's a Wild Plains restriction, so you can also gain quite a bit of a benefit from the Explodey weapon, both of which are available in the Soul Forge this week if you choose to end up picking them up. Otherwise, your weapon selection isn't too good without one of the 2 of them. And aside from that, you're mostly just looking for any of the many good damage sources from this kingdom, most of which are the ones that boost ratio based on their life, attack, and armor, with Catchers being most ideal and any of the other ones being adequate for the mode, if you so need it. With all the extra spell damage, it'll be perfectly fine. Like right here, we end up using like the Minotaur Splash, which doesn't have boost ratio, but it does have that nice silence. He's also a lot more accessible for newer players, as you can just get him from the faction. He's only an epic and really easy to obtain, so it's a lot more accessible compared to something like a Ketris or a double Ketris. That is much harder to get. Anyways, we also have Guild War this week. Of course, all the same with this. Make sure to use the same. Make sure to use a pure color team for the offense, and make sure that everything on your defense is completely unique, so you get the full 12,000 points. They also supposedly fixed some kind of glitch with the points system with this. Apparently, some people weren't getting the full amount of points with some kind of glitch and a few other things related to Guild War. Let's see if they added any additional bugs, but supposedly they fixed a couple bugs related to that with Guild War, as far as how the defend teams were set and the scoring with it. So hopefully it works correctly now. And if you don't know how it works, basically you just need 4 unique things for every single defend team. You ideally want to make them as strong as possible. However, them being unique is the most important thing. And you know for sure if you have, as it will say, 12,000 points over here whenever it switches around, as you get 2,000 additional points per day for having purely unique. And if you have it across every single day, you'll have a full amount of 12,000, which actually denotes right here. And if this says anything other than 12,000, that means you need to go change one of these, as you have a repeat somewheres. You're allowed to repeat hero classes, but you're not allowed to repeat any weapons nor any troops. So do be mindful of that. And of course, you can get your upgrades if you want, and all the normal stuff with Guild War. I'll be doing that on our stream every single night, as we normally do, going over that a little bit further. Anyways, aside from that, other things we have going on this week. So this Tuesday, we have a faction event for Labyrinth, which has a very annoying final one. Basically, you just want to kill the tank. I'll be mentioning it more when we go over the actual pure faction team. Wednesday is just a Taurus troop, basically for Taurus bonus. Thursday is the class event for Shaman. Shaman is exclusively, only used for its 50% mana start to Tauruses. If I'm not mistaken, there is another troop that already does this. I believe it's for the faction, oddly enough. So there is an alternative way to do it. However, normally you're utilizing it through the hero. And that's pretty much its only purpose, is like if you're running double Catchers of Bull or some other kind of similar team where you just really want Tauruses to have 50% mana start and you're not already using the other troop that does. And this Friday, as I already mentioned, we have a Vault event weekend. Yeah, definitely a great time to be farming a bunch of loot. You can also farm up the new hero class if you want, if you still haven't already maxed that out with like a Rowain build or something similar. But definitely a great time to be farming pretty much everything in the game. Keep in mind, one nice thing about the new Merchant and Angel system that ended up getting in, while it will slightly slow down your rate of getting verses, because they still do occur during Vault events when you're, trying to get your verses, doing your standard battles. However, they have mentioned in the patch notes, which hopefully is coded correctly, in that these events will not occur when you're doing those 15-minute paloozas, meaning they will not directly get in the way of your paloozas, but they might ever so slightly reduce the rate at which you'll get verses, just because your battles will constantly keep getting a notification pop up after them. That will slow you down, but it will not slow you down during paloozas, as they do not occur during palooza. So that's a pretty nice feature, and we'll be able to see that this Friday to see if it actually works correctly. As far as troops, did we get anything good in so far? I just didn't peek at this earlier. Tina 9000, I was actually just mentioning this earlier. So that new dragon is basically trying to be what Tina 9000 is. Tina 9000 to this day is still the most spell-resistant troop in the entire game, at least when it comes to physical spell damage, which is kind of ironic given that there's already something that has 75% reduction. But the main reason why it's actually better is because it has a gigantic armor gain based on double its magic plus 6, 8, whatever that number is. But anyways, it does a lot of armor gain on top of 50% spell reduction. So if they're hitting you with physical spell damage, it is the tankiest thing for physical spell damage in the entire game. On top of that, it also gets to utilize that armor in an additional way, which I wish every single armor boost ratio troop had something to do this. In this case, it gets to do 50% of its armor as skull damage. This is generally used as a second slot, so when your first slot dies, your second slot that was kept relatively safe will have a billion attack. It didn't take too much damage because it has a spell resist, so even if things were hitting it directly through non-skull means, well, you just resisted most of it. And then you just hit them for very big skull damage. Also, it has enough true damage that in any PvP-like situation, you're likely going to kill from its true damage burst. 2 of these hits into the same unit are generally going to kill, as like what we have right now is averaging like, 70-ish damage, and 270s being 140 will kill most things at our level range. And similar as you go through most of the game, at least relative to your current area in the game. So pretty good for things like Guild War if you want to incorporate into that. Sometimes used for lower level factions. It's not used too often, but it's a great utility troop to always keep an eye on. And it's in Soulforge this week, so maybe worth considering. It seems to be one of the only few things really worthwhile here. Do keep in mind, Adana is getting in a rework in a couple months. And this could be either good or bad for Tina 9000, depending on how the rework goes. So that might be even more of a reason to get it, though it might also be less of a reason to get it, as you might just be event key foring it in a couple months from now. When you're trying to get Ironhawk, assuming they don't nerf Ironhawk. We're going to find out. There's a lot of scary things the Adana rework could do that are either going to make Tina 9000 Ironhawk even better than they already are, or nerf them into the ground. I don't think Tina 9000 is going to get nerfed, but we'll see. Anyways, I'm more so concerned about that Ironhawk. Anyways, As far as Soulforge is concerned, I kind of already mentioned the weapons earlier. We're mostly looking for the mana accumulating ones related to Wild Plains. These aren't generally used ever, however, they're pretty good for the current world event, so if you want to have either Primal Axe or the Wild Cleaver for that, they could be okay. If I'm not mistaken, Rage Weaver is situationally good. It has a weird mechanic where it does a bunch of splash damage to an enemy and then creates a bunch of red gems based on Tauruses. There are some situations when you're running a 4x Taurus team where this can be a good weapon. It is super situational, and I don't feel like it's used much in the current state of the game. However, if you do want to incorporate it and maybe get it for any future Tauruses that might come out, who knows, maybe there'll be like a mythic for it in a couple months. That'll just make it insane, who knows. But it is actually a pretty good weapon. There just isn't much synergy in it besides Catches the Bull, and I believe Florida Slaughter can kind of use it, but there's other better Florida Slaughter teams like Construct. Florida Slaughter ends up working out way better. But I don't know, there's a few. Actually, he doesn't even count as Taurus. He's a Construct War Gear, but it still works because the rest of your team is kind of focused around it. But anyways, it's mostly a Ketris weapon with a few other niche purposes that it will probably get more purposes in the future, and if it ever does, it's really solid. It's just, it doesn't have the synergy. It actually reminds me a lot of the gem spawning troops that we already have. The ones that end up creating like mass purple, the mass brown, off of Chalcedony, stuff like that, based on the typing. It's basically that attached to a hero, with all the perks that hero gets from a hero class, so it's definitely a good option. It's just, it lacks many synergies within the current state of the game, which makes it a lot weaker than how strong it actually is. As it is very good, it's just it lacks synergy. Anyways, let's go over all the teams for the week. So, of course, as far as starting from the top, we have ourselves, oh yeah, this is the 4 new troops. I already went over that. That's not an actual team, obviously, just a reminder of the 4 new troops. They are in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests, and that lowest rarity one's in gold. However, it is worth waiting until Friday to get most of them. I'm going to be doing that for the dragon, and as far as maxing out the rest, as it's just better to do it while trying to get the new mythic. You'll save a lot of resources just to get these 3, or these 2. I think I did like 20,000 or something glory keys. I got like 4 mythics along the way. So yeah, it's kind of rare to get them. Actually, I mentioned that in the past too. It is actually harder in the current state of the game to get a specific legend than it is to get a random mythic. It is a higher chance to get a random mythic than get the exact legend you want from the random drop table. And the main reason for this is how many legends there are in the game relative to drop rates. Not sure if they're ever going to tweak that in the future, but yeah, a specific legend that isn't Underworld, when it's not from an event, when you're specifically just trying to roll through it for like glory keys, gem keys, stuff like that, is actually rarer than a random mythic by quite a margin. So yeah, I would just wait till Friday, as you might get the mythic before you even get the legend this Friday if you haven't already gotten it. Anyways, so world event. As far as stronger team, we're basically just going into all in on Catches the Bull. As far as Tauruses are concerned, it's like 99% Taurus the Bull. It's just a really strong option, really high boost ratio. He's not used much in the current state of the game, however, he's pretty good under the restriction, so you can just do that. Feed him with a weapon, and Ridgeback is just here for mana accumulation. You could go use the new purple-blue troop if you want coverage. It just doesn't really do much, and I was concerned the mana drain might get in the way. So I just kind of put a Ridgeback there for a little bit of mana accumulation, as there aren't too many options within the kingdom for mana accumulation, unfortunately. As far as the lower range, I kind of already showed this earlier, but the main premise that we're doing is we're using the other mana accumulating weapon to constantly keep resummoning into first slot. You could use any of the nulls in first slot. I just happen to put the actual null, cold null, but you can use any of the nulls there. Ridgeback, once again, is there's not that many mana accumulating options, and he works pretty good. One other thing that this actually pretty good for is it knocks the enemy to the back, so you can actually get them adjacent when you're using Ketris or some kind of other splash damage, so you can get them next to each other in order to make the splash damage work. For example, let's say that one troop is in first slot and the one troop is in fourth slot. If you use Ridgeback to move the first enemy to last slot, those 2 troops are now adjacent to each other, meaning that splash damage will hit the 2 troops together. And that's kind of the whole synergy with something like this, is that you move them together so you can then hit them with splash damage, either off of Minotaur, off of Catches the Bull, or off of any of the other splash damage options within the kingdom. And that's kind of the whole premise with them. Just move them together when they're not together, and then you can hit them for additional damage. And this guy's just here to basically apply some silence, make sure you don't die. That's pretty much the whole premise of this team. Is just a nice, safe, not die option. We're using a tanky hero class, and just a lot of mana accumulation, a lot of cycling, and just a very slow win, but very budget. You get this for free, or not for free. You get this very easily from Underworld, from Labyrinth, underneath the Labyrinth faction. Just throw Chaos Shards there. Ridgeback, really low rarity, rare. Weapon, Soulforge this week. Unfortunately, you do kind of need one of the 2 weapons ideally, as particularly to summon one if you're running the lower end. Mostly because every other option just isn't that good as far as hero weapons are concerned, at least most of them. and just any kind of damage pressure in first slot, just whatever you kind of want to put there. It's pretty flexible. Anyways, as far as the faction Labyrinth, it is a red-green restriction. Of course, your weapon can be anything you want. This is standard Rowain team for the very first team up here, just for a quick kill on the top range. And then we have ourselves a little bit of a makeshift Zugov team, just kind of using Essence of Evil to make sure you stay safe. Marilith with the banner to make sure you have +3 red, so you can potentially one-turn her or two-turn her, in order to get her up a little bit quicker. And Zolgoth is your main killer, Leprechaun just for a little bit of mana accumulation quickly. And just a kind of double mana accumulator into double damage source, where Essence of Evil is like damage source and a half. Like it's mana accumulating, but you know, Essence of Evil disables them enough that kind of damage source. Anyway, as far as pure faction, main thing to note is that the Minotaur or the Horned Guardian, is the most annoying thing in existence. Your goal is to kill this with every single thing you have. If you think that anything else is more of a threat, it is actually the Horned Guardian. Just throw literally everything you have until the Horned Guardian is dead. Main reason for this is if your Horned Guardian is alive and their Horned Guardian is dead, you will win under almost every circumstances to get like a billion skulls in a row. He's the most annoying thing to get rid of, as he has a durability gain into a barrier while not gaining any additional attack, which means that the enemy will outpace you, assuming that they have way higher stats compared to you, unless you pull a lot of potions. But it is absurdly annoying. I remember this taking like almost an hour because of the circumstance I got into. So just absolutely kill the Horned Guardian, and then you win. If your Horned Guardian's alive, theirs is dead, auto win. You have a bunch of silence that you can spam to keep it safer so they don't hit you. There's also slowly damage pressures, but you're mostly using it for silence. And King Minos is mostly here for the 50% mana start. You can't use Hero to 50% mana start them, but you can use this Legendary. And it also gets to do some damage pressure. However, this is almost entirely here for the 50% mana start, though you can use it to try to damage pressure down their Horned Guardian a little bit quicker. One thing that might make this even more annoying is it does have 20% stats this week, which actually does benefit the enemy more than you, as they do gain more stats from that 20% compared to how much you end up gaining. So that technically makes Pure Faction even slightly harder for the faction this Tuesday. But yeah, it's pretty much the whole strategy. Just absolutely just pile Horned Guardian and make sure yours doesn't die. Anyways, as far as Shaman class, quite a few things you can do for this. We're just running a bunch of links. We're just running a bunch of nature links and brown links into feeding our black manacle. Well, the Taurus ends up feeding off the green. If you do want to go into both, you can do War and Peace, but I kind of wanted the Taurus to have a little bit of a cleanup option, just to get that 25%, or actually, yeah, the 100% summon on that one fight. So you might need that for a little bit extra damage pressure. And of course, as far as the weekend is concerned, I just figured we reiterate on the Vault event teams. Of course, this is superior to Dust Devil into Double Ironhawk. Generally one of the absolute best ones when doing a Palooza. You can also, for the earlier range, run 3 Ironhawk into Dust Devil if you happen to have that. So you can go for the one-shot options. Though do keep in mind the current Battle Crasher, or not Battle Crasher, whatever you call it, the guy that drops 10 crowns per day. That guy does survive a single Dust Devil, so make sure you have that daily done beforehand and have your 10 crowns before you go and use the triple Ironhawk Dust Devil team. But when you're running Palooza, you just run this very quick Sister Superior cast for auto extra turn and a Dust Devil into Ironhawk. And this is a little bit quicker than running Greed, as you don't have to deal with the animation at the beginning of the fight. And as far as the cheaper team, just Black Manacle into Rowain running any hero class. One nice thing about this is if you haven't maxed out Spirit Walker yet, or any hero class for that matter, you can go level it. It's a very flexible team that can run with any hero class in the game, and you could potentially use this to max out the new Spirit Walker if you haven't already. And just standard Rowain team. This is what standard Rowain team does. A bit slower than the other team, but it's really cheap and accessible to end up obtaining, so pretty nice in that regard. Anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a like on the video, as it helps out a lot and is greatly appreciated. All the teams mentioned in this video will also be in the description if you want to go and copy paste any of them. And as far as Guild Wars, we're going to be messing around with that every single day this week, as we normally do at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to catch that, we'll be streaming that here on the channel and just doing more with the Guild War every single day, as well as trying to farm those new things that just came in through the last patch last week. And of course, we'll be farming that the Vault event quite a bit this weekend. Not sure exactly how much we'll go for. We hit 500 last time, even though we kind of wanted 1,000. So we'll probably hit somewhere in that range. Not sure if we'll go for the full 1,000 push, as it does require a pretty big time investment, but it does pay off in the end, as gosh, do Vault keys have some pretty good loot. And of course, with the new change this week, 2 new Vault troops, Empress, the best tarot card in the game, as well as the other one, the staff thingy, whatever it was. It's pretty useless, but, you know, collection purposes, could still end up getting them. Anyways, guys, we'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching.